Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. I'm a professor of innovation, strategy, and entrepreneurship. And in this particular video, I really wanted to talk to you about what can you actually learn from success and failure. So I study learning from success, learning from failure, mostly with companies, but I also sort of go into different things like, entrepreneurship, for example, sort of learn psychology, for example. There's lots of stuff to understand with learning from success and failure. So I'm going to get into exactly what that is. So what is success? What is failure? So success, you could think about anything that you actually do, any sort of decision that you do. We always try to make some sort of, this is how we think that people behave and companies behave. So might be, maybe it'll change in the future, but this is what we think is that actually happens, is that people have some sort of reference point. They try to create some sort of reference point in the future, and then you try to perform a particular action relative to that reference point. And then if you succeed that reference point, then we consider that a success. And if we don't get to that reference point, then we consider that a failure. So what we try to do is, in those moments where we have a particular success or failure, we try to learn from those particular things. That's called experience that we get. And what happens, or what we believe happens, is that failure actually provides a little bit more of a that thing that makes us sort of learn than success does. There's lots of different reasons for this. There's a couple of key ones. Is, first of all, failure feels a lot more. It hurts a lot more, so you tend to pay attention to it. It's a lot more salient than success is. So we tend to really latch on to those failed experiences than success. Whenever you feel success, what you do is you kind of adjust your expectations, aspirations upwards, and then you try for something else in the future. But failure means that we did something not right, and we have to adjust and figure out what's going on. The second thing that's going to happen is that we tend to be a little bit more risk-taking whenever we have a failed event, because of this negative emotion that you feel, or we think that there's something wrong, and which sort of leads to a third thing, is that we are more likely to change in those circumstances. Now, it does sometimes happen in some situations where we tend to clam up and we tend to sort of restrict sort of information coming towards us. That's called a threat rigidity response, and that's kind of a normal thing because of the emotional responses that you get from that. These are all kind of different. So failure is different than mistakes. Mistakes is usually kind of really unintentional. You couldn't have anticipated it. It's sort of more related to inattention or inability to sort of understand your surroundings, as much as sort of failure is tends to be a little bit more of an intentional thing that happens, and then the sort of environment maybe changes, and then the environment sort of is not conducive to the successful action. You're trying to achieve a particular thing in the future, and you think it's going to be successful, but then it becomes a failure. This is different than a mistake, where it's kind of much more sort of haphazard. I guess a mistake is a little bit more haphazard. But there's a lot of different things that you can do and achieve with learning from failure. We know that this is becoming more critical in terms of understanding how businesses actually work. Learning from failure actually drives a lot of business decisions, and also drives a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship, and some really cool work that J.P. Eggers did, and Sun, I believe, in 2016. They have a really nice article that sort of describes that if you continuously sort of persist at something, at a particular domain, when you're an entrepreneur, that you do get better. If you fail and switch to a different domain, then you don't necessarily get better. But if you persist at a particular domain, you can get better at what you're doing with your sort of entrepreneurial ventures. It also is really related to personal success. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence of this, but sort of in the psychological literature and in sort of the what is it, psychological economics literature, that there's a couple of really cool people that have won Nobel Prizes in this area, sort of talking about prospect theory, which is really thinking of it in terms of what's gains and losses. Or gains and losses. So what that is it's basically pointing out that we feel a lot more pain. The proportional pain that you feel from losses is a lot more stronger than the pain you feel from gains that you get. So meaning that you're going to be more reactive to particular failure that happens. So what can you do from learning from failure? What are some strategies to learn from failure in terms of actually trying to get some sort of success in the future, right? So what can you actually possibly do to become more successful by paying attention to failure? So first thing is really understand what failure is and try to reach outside of try to intentionally fail at something. So you know that you have a particular expectation of what the future is going to be. Try to actually try to pursue a particular action that's going to be way outside of your domain that you wouldn't have possibly have tried in the first place. And you know you're going to fail at that particular thing. But what does that do? That tests your aspiration or expectation level. What you will see is that you will probably adjust those aspirations and that sort of future perspective of where you want to go. You're going to adjust that. And that adjustment is going to be much more accurate if you try something that's really crazy outside of your ability. So trying to think about, maybe you try to do a marathon. Well, you can't do a marathon. You've sort of realized that you can't do a marathon, but you could do a half marathon, or you could do a 10K, right? Which you couldn't have done before. So figuring out that sort of expectation level, or trying something that's so outside of that you think was possible, that's going to sort of allow you to have a better idea. It's going to allow you to have a much more better perception of what your expectation is for your own performance. Second thing, when you try to fail at something or do something that you kind of think you have a greater chance of failing at, is just be in a context that has what is called psychological safety. So this is Amy Edmondson's work at Harvard Business School. She's got some great ideas on this in terms of realizing that you need to be in a situation, a context where you just need to be very supportive, or people need to be supportive of the fact that you're doing something that is risky and that you're going to fail at this particular thing. If you're in a context where people jump on you, so for example, I think she was looking at physicians at the time in physician teams, surgical teams, and if they jump on you when you make a mistake, then you're more likely to sort of ignore failure, or you're going to have errors. But if people are more open to that, then you can turn it into a learning experience where you actually maybe you have sort of a group meeting after at the particular thing of why something actually failed, or you sit down and think about it, that why something failed, or you try to create a surrounding where people are actually really okay with you doing things that are risky and that can flop. That's going to be much more easy on you as a person, and it's going to encourage a lot more sort of failure or tried events. So the third thing that you should probably sort of consider is, just try to be picky at what you're going to fail at, or what you're going to try to fail at. So what we do know from learning from failure is that it is very emotionally taxing. It is really, really hard to deal with failure. We all have that. From what I gather and from what I understand, sort of an evolutionary response to, if we're standing at a cliff, we don't want to, or we're hanging from a cliff, we don't want to fail. We're going to die, right? So you want to succeed all the time. So we have this sort of real pit in our stomach whenever we fail, and we kind of ruminate on it. Our mind tends to wander on these negative paths a lot, or we start thinking about counterfactuals of like, what should have happened in this particular situation, or what could have happened, or what should I have done differently? And that is not a real good path to go on. We all do it. I do it all the time. I'm constantly thinking like, oh crap, why didn't I do that? Or why didn't I do that? Like that was a really embarrassing moment for me. Why did I why did I do this? I mean, these YouTube videos is case in point. These are really out there, I think, for an academic to do. So they could be really embarrassing for me. And I often think about, like, what the heck am I doing? Is this pointless? But, like, that is where you have to sort of really be picky at what you're choosing, that you could be risky and that you could fail at that particular thing, and be really concerned about what you're choosing at, because it's so emotionally taxing. You want to reduce the amount of sort of situations of being in an emotionally taxing situation, because it's really uncomfortable, and it really does sort of get to you after a while. It sort of beats up on you. So you want to limit that amount of sort of negative self-talk and things like that. And this is kind of related to the fourth thing that I wanted to talk about, is that it is, just when you experience a failure, just know that it's just a single failed event, right? Like there's lots of different reasons why failure actually occurs. The environment changed. You made a poor prediction based on the information. I don't know. There's so many different situations. Maybe a competitor or somebody else came into the space, which sort of removed some of the available stuff, that the available ability to actually succeed in the future. And just know that you can compartmentalize it as one component of your life, and your life is a lot more richer, and there's so much that you can do with your life. It's not that important, right? So if you're trying to write a book, for example, and you get about 50 pages in and you're like, darn, I can't do this. This is too hard. Well, who cares? It's a little component of your life. It doesn't matter, right? And there's so much more of your life that is growing and blossoming. For me, I have to sort of think about all this kind of stuff on a regular basis of like, this is not really all that important, right? Like if this flops, this is not that important. I have a wonderful wife. I've got great kids. I'm so privileged to live in the U.S. or in a Western country. I'm so privileged to, there's just so many things, and it doesn't matter where you are and what you're doing. You might be in, Timbuktu, for example, and you are so privileged to be in those particular situations, to be in that context, to be immersed in that nobody else can actually experience those kind of things. It's a really lucky thing that you have. And if you do something that fails, and it's only one little tiny thing, like who cares, right? That particular thing that fails, at least you said that you tried this particular thing, and then you move on, you compartmentalize it and move on. And so this is why, you often hear that, failure kind of strengthens a person. Well, no, it can actually also weaken a person too, because if you continue to try something and you sort of let it sort of take care of your life or overcome your life, it can be really, really devastating for you, and it really does hurt. So if you can compartmentalize it and sort of try to deconstruct, not like really deconstruct, because that can be emotionally taxing too, but just kind of try to get a couple of lessons from that and then move on. That's going to be really, really beneficial for you, and that could help you succeed. But don't ruminate on it too much, and just know it's a small component of your life. And the last thing, so the fifth thing that I think is important, and I've been trying to do this a lot more lately, and it's really helped me out sort of behaviorally. If you look at some of the older videos, I do talk about this stuff. There's one on New Year's I put out, I believe, where I talked about New Year's resolutions, where if you just simply redefine what your expectation is, redefine what your success is. So make it really stinking low, right? Your expectation. And if you do that expectation, if you make that expectation really low, you're going to succeed at that particular thing, and you're going to feel really good about that particular thing, and you might reinforce doing that particular thing in the long run, right? So just redefine it. Just be like, okay, so my goal with doing these, so for me, doing these YouTube videos and putting out all this information for you and being as helpful as I possibly can, my goal is just to put out a YouTube video a day for a year. And that is really daunting. But at the same time, I'm trying not to care so much about quality and things like that, because I want to make it quality and make it very useful for you, but I also don't want to get sort of caught up in all of the crap that's associated with building this kind of stuff, and, you know, putting in all this gadgetry and all that kind of stuff, because that is going to make me feel really terrible, because I can't do it, and it's going to cost me a ton of money. So I needed to redefine that. So another one that I talked about on my New Year's resolution, on New Year's, where I was simply just said, you know, I'm going to try to do, you know, something really simple. I'm going to try to do 100 push-ups a day, and that seems really simple, but in a lot of ways, it's really complicated, because it's like doing this every single day. It's really difficult. You know, and at the beginning, I could only do like maybe 10, 15 push-ups at a time. And now it's becoming, you know, I could do 75 push-ups in a row. And it's just simply from sticking with something and making sure that I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and doing this. And just redefining what you mean by success and understand what success is. That's going to be really, really helpful, and make it really just simple, so you can actually get a successful event. That's going to be really beneficial for you in terms of mentally dealing with all this kind of stuff. So if you like that, what I did here is define what success and failure is, sort of talk to you about what you can actually learn from success and failure, and provided some strategies to actually learn from failure in order for you to be a much more successful person when you deal with failure. So that's it. Have a good day. Oh yeah, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, as well as make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'm trying to put more stuff out like this, and that does help out. So take care, have a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. All right, bye.